Welcome to the Modern Boomer special event. The 80s, the time of computer games in their relative infancy. Where graphics in the world was just a little more simple, there was Sierra Entertainment. They were the big dog of computer games. The modern boomers spent years of their lives enjoying the software from this great company. And their owners got their start with a game called Colossal Cave Adventure, a 70s text-based romp that was made into one of IBM and Apple's first games, and also converted with graphics to the Atari 2600. This game was pivotal for the owners of Sierra Entertainment and the years of gaming goodness they brought to the hearts and souls of millions of people. With games like Phantasmagoria, King's Quest, Police Quest, SWAT, Leisure Suit Larry, and The Colonel's Bequest, Ken and Roberta Williams have seemingly done it all. From their start in a home-based office in the 70s to gaming icons, Ken and Roberta Williams have decided to take on yet a new adventure, to remake Colossal Cave in VR as well as release it for PC, Mac, and consoles. Colossal Cave 3D Adventure by Roberta Williams is a fantastic remake of a classic game, and you can get it now through their new company, Cygnus Entertainment. Join the modern boomers and icons Ken and Roberta Williams for an interview on gaming history, Colossal Cave, and the future on this Modern Boomer special.
Hey guys, thank you for coming to the Modern Boomer. This is a special recording, a special podcast for us. We have some very phenomenal guests with us today. People that drove a lot of the video games that I grew up playing, Doc himself, and that's super exciting. So we have Ken and Roberta Williams from Sierra and now Cygnus. And they recently released a remaster, a remake of the original text game Colossal Cave that I've had the luxury to play. Doc's had the luxury to play,
Yep.
And we're gonna ask them a series of questions. This is huge, and like I know I said a little bit in the intro that you guys are kind of the heroes of my childhood, but I can't express enough that like I grew up on a 46 and some old IBM computers, and my family didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I held old computers for a long time, and I played a lot of Sierra games growing up, and that's kind of where I got my footing. So this is huge. This is huge for me, and I can only imagine the same for Doc.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're this is amazing.
And as you said, Roberta, a little bit earlier, I mean, I know you hear this a lot, but I'm looking at everything that I have in my office, and I'm a physician now, so I do this on the side just because I still enjoy the technology and the gaming world, and everything that I've done started in the late 80s with King's Quest. So this is amazing to have you guys on, and we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
It's our pleasure and honor to be with you.
This is incredible. I mean, Phantasmagoria was, I think, one of the first PC games I've ever played, along with King's Quest. And then I was a huge fan of Lighthouse, The Dark Being. That was a huge game of mine. And I played that at such a young age. And now I think about it, I might have been a little young for it, but it was such a challenging video game for me.
So you like the horror games, huh? Or you liked them?
Well, my mother was a big fan of Myst. And so Lighthouse and Shivers fell in that category. And she was mind-blowingly addicted to them at the time. So I was whatever mom had the computer is what I played.
Well, it seemed like you turned out all right. So I think it's okay. It was okay.
yeah, absolutely. I hope so. So we have a series of questions. I'm gonna go ahead and let Doc start.
Sure.
Because, I know he's fanboying and he has a lot of really cool stuff.
The oldest one of the group, so so I guess I get to go first. I appreciate that, but I mean, guys, just a quick question. I mean, how does it feel to be back in what you're doing today with Colossal Cave? I know you guys were retired for a while, and according to Ken's book, which I've read and listened to, and some interviews I've watched before, Ken got the itch to try to come back to the industry. And we appreciate that. And I enjoyed
Yes.
Colossal Cave, and I've played it, and I liked it. And I was just wondering, how do you feel about being back in the saddle again?
Well, I no, it feels great. It feels like we never left. It when we think about it and we realize that it's been 25 years, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like yesterday. I mean, it's kind of a lot of the same issues, dealing with the same challenges, and I don't know. I compare it to like riding a bike or something. I mean, you do it. We did it long enough. I don't think people realize that Sierra, we ran for almost 20 years. And so, I mean, we've done a lot of this. Although the world is fairly different today, the market is way more competitive. I mean, when we were in the business, we had to worry about Lucasfilm and 2 or 3 other companies that were each releasing 2 or 3 products a year. And now suddenly, on Steam, I mean, it's I heard one number like 300 games a day that get added to Steam. So it's tough to break out of the pack. The market's more competitive. The quality bar is way higher, and the prices are way lower. So you stack all that together, and it's an interesting time to be back in the business. The technology is so great. I come at a lot of this from an engineer's perspective, and the debugging tools for building games, the cross-platform capability, the ease with which you can move a 3D character through the world. I mean, to me, that's all kind of mind-blowing. I mean, I think back on Sierra days and how hard it was to do very simplistic things. And you look at some of the old Sierra games, and I know how hard we had to work to do things. And today, I mean, one instruction, you've done the same thing. So it's cool what you can accomplish today with not a lot of effort. But
I will say that Colossal Cave is a hit on Steam right now. I mean, you guys got very positive reviews, positive overall reviews. And I would say that the critics of Steam are pretty serious. I mean, as somebody who's been on Steam since the XP days or so, when Steam was his first thing, I mean, people have always been pretty hardcore on the reviews of the game and of games that are on Steam. And I mean, I think that was a huge challenge. I would assume it was a huge challenge to take something like Colossal Cave that was this text-based game that had a lot of areas where people filled in the blanks with their own imagination. Now you've had to fill that in with 3D graphics and art and kind of show them, because I think the modern generation doesn't have as much of imagination. Video games kind of give it to them for free. They spoon feed it to them. So the fact that you guys have done so well in that transcription from a text-based game to this 3D game and a new engine, a new environment, I think that's phenomenal. I mean, were you guys nervous at all with the modern generation of gamers and kind of their perception of something like that? Or did you guys feel pretty comfortable that, some of us folks who grew up with what you guys' products would pick it up and know right away what's going on, and it'd almost be like the rose-colored glasses?
Since I was, I guess you would say, more primarily responsible for the look and feel of the game, Ken is the programmer. He's an engineer and sort of managed the whole large project budget, and everything, all the kind of the businessy end of it and programming. Ken, I would call is the principal engineer on the project. But as far as the look and feel and the design and how it plays, and all that fell more under me. It was really, I guess you were saying how we felt that and I always find the word the modern players. I mean, I even use that term, all the time, and every time I go, God, that sounds weird, but it's like whatever that means. But I guess it generally means younger people.
Right.
Yeah, I never really worried that much about Colossal Cave being able to come into the modern world. And because I deal in the design world. I am a designer. That's what I always did, was design my own games. From the story, telling the story through the puzzles, through just the map of the world and playing it. And I always felt I know this is going to sound very egotistical, but I always felt pretty confident with my games and the choices of the games that I wanted to write. I don't know why. I just always, from my mind, it was always what I would want to play. That's the way I always came at everything. And I always found it fun to design the games. I actually have fun designing games. That's where I get my fun. And so I'm having fun doing it. And I loved Colossal Cave that's what got me into the business, was playing Colossal Cave in early 1980. And I was just a confused young mother at the time with two very, very young children. Didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. And Ken was a up and coming programmer. And I'm just sitting around like, I don't know what I want to do. Play Colossal Cave. Loved it. It taught me how. It basically just propelled me into being a designer. I just was compelled to sit down and just write a game. It was Mystery House, my first game, and it was just up from there. But to me, Colossal Cave, as a designer, to me, it's a great design. I look at design, I live design, I feel design, and I think I know a little something about design. And I just always felt it was just a great design. And a great design is a great design, and it doesn't matter when it was developed. It's like a good movie script. You could have a great movie script in the 1930s, and if it's a great movie script, there's no reason why it couldn't be made into a great movie today, albeit with some changes, obviously. Bring it, into the modern world, the characters would be modern and all that. But the script itself, the storyline would still be good. And that's the way I looked at Colossal Cave is, yes, it's like a 50-year-old game developed in the early 70s. But the game it's a great game. It's a great design. It's got great strategy. It has, like they would say in the building world of building homes or buildings, it's got great bones. And
Yes.
And Colossal Cave has great bones. So you just take that and you just add what you need to add to bring it to the modern world, modern sensibilities, modern graphics, sound, music, animation, you do all that, but you look at the bones, you keep the bones, you don't mess with that. And you don't mess with the script, and the script for me is all the text that was part of the game. That was the game, actually. There was no game without the text, because the text is what told you what's going on and how you communicated with it. And so I kept all of the text. All of the text from the original game is there. I added to it because of adding graphics. There was more to see, and there was nothing to see on the text. It was all just in your mind. You would read the descriptions of where you were, and the descriptions would tell you where you are and what you see around you, and what you can get, or what you may have to, character you have to deal with, or whatever. It would tell you all that. All of those are there. And even the dialogues of the characters are exactly the same ones. I didn't add any more. It's all exactly the same. But I did add more messages. I probably added at least twice as many messages or narrations over what was there because of the graphics. Add in all the graphics. You have props. We have props everywhere and things for you to look at and make the world look interesting. And so we necessarily had to add more to describe what you're seeing or give you a little more information. But I did try to stay within the same
Right.
tone, the messages, so you wouldn't know which were the old ones and which were the new ones. So, but no, I just felt like this game would not be a problem. I mean, I didn't feel that it was going to come out and everybody was going to just fall all over it. It's not like that, but adventure game players and people that like a good story game, and I felt would be no problem.
Yes, I agree. I mean, so, building on that answer, do you feel, I mean, you're a storyteller, I've played most games you've developed. Did you feel stifled at all by that, by the fact that you were constrained to a game that you didn't originally create and that you weren't able to kind of run wild with things in different directions like you wanted to? Do you feel that's a difficulty?
No, because, well, I don't think I ever really ran wild. Maybe in Phantasmagoria I did. I will say I probably did there. No, no, I've always been pretty methodical with even with my own designs. I just start out with this kind of blobs that I'm putting down on a big piece of paper, and I always built my games from a map up, not from a script down, but a map up. I would map it and see the entire game on one huge piece of paper, and that's the way I always did it, and I always started it, and then I just stuck to it pretty much as I added layers and layers upon that as I built it up, but it would always stick with the original design map or flow chart or however you want to put it that I did. So I always kind of constrained myself, I guess you might say. And so in a way, this wasn't that much different. It just wasn't mine, but I thought that was kind of a challenge. That was the biggest challenge, was taking somebody else's design and bringing it over to graphics, trying to design the characters, because you say, oh, there's a troll, but there's no description of the troll in the original
Right.
Colossal Cave. It's just, there's a troll, here's a troll and he wants treasure for you to cross this bridge. The bridge is rickety. They told us that, so we knew we could do that, but there was no description of the troll. So I had to look, so I looked at lots of troll images, and in my mind I'm going, well, what kind of troll do we want? And the pirate and the dwarfs and the snake, and it was a green snake. That's all I knew. It was a big green snake, and so I have to come at it from that standpoint. But so there was actually a lot for me to do and to use my own imagination. And in creating the world of Colossal Cave, obviously I wanted to have it feel. I wanted people who played Colossal Cave in text form. It was really important to me that what was in their heads, as was in my head when I played it, it would feel like that's what it would look like. It was really important.
Yeah.
for me. But then, of course, that's very subjective because it's me. It's not you or anybody else. It's really just me. And at that point, you have to go with your gut, your best guess, and what pleases you. so that's that's really the only way you can really go. And I just try not to overthink. If you overthink, then you'll just never get anywhere, and you'll have to ask everybody's opinion and what do you think of this and that, and then it comes down to a committee. And so I just have always just followed my own heart.
I will say that I played Colossal Cave, and Doc and I refreshed ourselves with the original text-based version from a website. I think you guys had it on a website, or somebody had it on a website. And it's funny enough is that when I played the 3D version, it was pretty dang close to what I had in my imagination. I think it hit most of the pillars of what my obviously everybody's imagination is a little different, but somebody who grew up reading a lot of Tolkien and things like that, I mean, like, I feel like it hit the 3D version, nailed everything that I saw in my own head. And I think that was a crazy connection that I was like, wow, that's impressive. You know what I mean? how could you know what I was envisioning? But
There was a lot of descriptions that they gave us, and we were so. When I say we, it was me and the artists. But I had a. It started out with just me and my environmental artist, Amber, and her and I, we worked very, very closely together to really plan out how the graphics were going to work. And I made sure that, and we made sure that all the directions that were given in the original game were exactly the same. So if they said, you go north and you go here, you go east, you go there, you go southwest, you go over here, we made sure that in planning our 3D world, that's still true. That was really important. But they gave us I'm not sure when it came down to some of the descriptions of the original game, if that was Will Crowther's descriptions or Don Wood's. I think I read a lot about them to learn who they were and their parts in developing the game. And I think Will Crowther was a little bit more succinct. His descriptions were not as descriptive, and Don Wood's was the more gregarious and kind of imaginative one. And so I think, well, maybe this would be a Don Wood's description and this would be more of a Will Crowther one, but I was never sure. But I liked the ones that were more descriptive because it gave us more to work with. The ones, but then we had something like in the Hall of the Mountain King, the room description was, well, you're in the Hall of the Mountain King. There are 5 exits. That was it. I was like, okay, the Hall of the Mountain King. How do we describe that? What is that? And then it kind of came down to, and then the first thing I asked was, and who is the Mountain King? Who is he? And so he kind of became a character in and of himself because, he was mentioned. And I figure I wasn't the only one that was going to be a little curious about who he was. So you see him, he's there in the Hall of the Mountain King. He's sort of dead and buried, but he's there. He's got his big sarcophagus.
He's there.
And you go, well, hello, King. So it's just little things like that, as you're going through and you look for the clues that Will Crowther and Don Woods left me and pick up on them and try to do more with those.
I was just going to interject that one of the cooler things that happened on the project was that Roberta and I got to work with Don Woods, the person. And it was like meeting a hero for us because we had heard his name for all these years, but really had no idea who he was. But then we sent him a copy of the game, and he playing it was, I always describe Roberta as kind of the world's greatest QA person, because when she's playing the game, she's such a, I don't know if nitpicker is a perfect word, but she sees it and she sees everything. And Don Woods was just like that. I mean, he sent us, God, if we'd got him involved earlier, he sent us a huge pile of bugs to go look at and little subtle nuances and things he noticed. And you could really see the designer mind, and you could see I think he had a huge influence on the game. And it was just a fun moment in our history to get to watch him.
I think he put in almost half of the game. That from the original Will Crowther version. But it was funny because I was reading, the communication was all by email, but I was reading a lot of Don Woods' comments when he was playing the game. And the first thing I said is, yep, he's a designer. Yep, I could see it in him so much. That was, yeah.
Yeah, somebody asked me if I had any good quotes from his emails to us. And I looked back at him and I said, no, it's like a Roberta bug report. It was like, go here, do this, fix that. So, but it was just cool. It was a fun experience. And you could see why the genius of the game. He was ahead of his time. There's, there's like subtle AI in there and things where the game is watching what you do and adjusting complexity to match to you, or it recognizes when you've got yourself in an unwinnable situation. I mean, for the very first game to do that is kind of shocking.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Well, I was going to say that I think that the AI part of the Colossal Cave was Will Crowther. That was, because he
Okay.
initiated the game. There was a game there before Don Woods became involved. I think what Don Woods added, he added more characters, puzzles. He added the point system.
I think he had the sarcastic humor that comes through in the game.
And he added a little bit more fantasy, although there was already fantasy there. But the AI part, the programming was pretty set down beforehand. And I know that Will Crowther was very involved with AI. Well, actually, Don Woods was as well. They both were, actually. So they were a good team. Let's just put it that way. They were a good team.
Well, I have a question for Ken. And Doc, I apologize. I don't mean to steal the spotlight here. So I'm a computer engineer and a software engineer by trade. And I know Unity is mostly written in C#. And we've come pretty far in today's environment for software development. I mean, I think the software engineers today, I think we're pretty spoiled by incredible storage and RAM and all the things that we have, and garbage collection and things like that we have to our luxury. That really makes our jobs a lot easier. Because I mean, I started in the C world and C++, and now I'm mostly in C#. Did you find any hurdles, or like, what was your opinion of kind of developing something in the modern gaming world, especially in a language like C# that I feel has a lot of intricacies, yet at the same time it's fairly a simple language compared to BASIC or C or C++?
Yeah, C# is kind of a padded cell environment. And I when I started, I had nobody to ask anything. So I just had YouTube videos that sometimes confused me more than they added value. I mean, really, I didn't learn Unity until I started coding at it and just finding out what I could and couldn't do. And it took me months to figure out that how it worked and what it was doing. And I was completely confused by how Visual Studio could step through C# code.
I work on that every day.
Yeah, and then Unity, when I really got to use the profiler and start, there's kind of a magic 16 millisecond bogey you got to hit to pull the frame rate we needed for the Quest 2. And being able to profile things on the headset from on a PC and step through code and set breakpoints and look at what's in memory and watch the garbage collection in action. I mean, it's just such a wonderful environment after all the years. I remember when we started, there wasn't even an assembler. And we, Sierra in the old days marketed Liza, the first assembler for 6502. When we started, we were having to write our own instructions, and when an assembler came along, it was wonderful. If you wanted to animate a character, you had to animate one cell at a time and write code to draw cells. It's, today's programmers are pretty spoiled, and I don't know if you saw. I did some testing with Chat GPT.
Okay.
I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
I said, write me some code that computes like the number 10 factorial or something. And it just wrote code. And I could have told it what language I wanted it in. So we're in a new world of software development.
Absolutely.
And, like I told Roberta, I said, I don't know yet if it's good news or bad news or scary news, but definitely the world has come a long way since when I was writing code 25 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think when I interview engineers from the current company I work for, stuff like that, I mean, I ask them a lot of really critical questions. I mean, it's surprising how many people don't know, like how many engineers you come in with X amount of years of experience in C# or Java. They don't know what bit packing is, or they have no idea how to do like RAII, like memory management and things like that, that, you know, I learned growing up, realizing that this is stuff I would need, but they didn't need it because the language does it for them. And it's surprising how spoiled we are. I mean, when you have 64 gigs of RAM at your disposal, it's like impossible to, you know, break out your computer that way. So like you have such a leniency. And I know from, you know, working on, and I can only imagine what you guys did back in the day with the limitations. I mean, my first computer was a 46. They only had a couple megs of RAM and maybe a gig hard drive or whatever at best. And that was top of the line. The limitations of that, and somebody who works in those languages all day long, I can't even imagine writing software at those limitations, you know?
Yeah. No, it's, today's programmers are, some are great, but there's more of them out there that have never really had to deal with any of those issues than you can imagine. And the state of the art in engineering. But I mentioned somebody the other day that I'm probably going to wind up writing a book about the making of this game. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is some of the experiences working with the engineers and ways in which I think they were just bad at coding. And,
absolutely.
In my book, it's funny. I only put one chapter about programming games, and for whatever reason I keep going to number one on the game programming list on Amazon, even though it wasn't a book about game programming. And there was what, 5 pages or something on game programming. So there's that. And even the guy that runs Unity, Ricciatello, told me when I was talking to him that he had never met a kid that didn't want to grow up and be a game developer. So there's a lot of interest in game programming these days, and it is a cool thing. I mean, you know, Roberta and I, as much as we will whine about how hard we worked, we had an awful lot of fun. We're going to look back on this, like in the boating world. We also do boating when we cross the Bering Sea.
That boat that we see behind you.
Oh, the boat you see behind me back there.
Yeah,
that. I got a captain's license and we took it across the Bering Sea. And I remember at the time thinking it was a pretty scary endeavor, but now I look back on it as a high point of our lives, as does Roberta. And this game is a little like that. I mean, right. We kind of were thrown into the deep end of the pool. We were working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 2 years. I mean, we had no life. I think a lot of our friends thought we had died or something. But we were, I live on a golf course and used to play golf like 5 days a week, and I just didn't play for 2 years. I mean, it's it's a lot of work to build a game, but it's also kind of high highs and low lows, and later you look back on it as one of the great experiences.
Right.
So. Does that mean, so where are you in your retirement? Semi-retired, retired, no longer retired, back in the saddle? What kind of title do you give yourself?
Well, I would say that some of it just depends on how well Colossal Cave does. I mean, I used to said if Colossal Cave comes out and we were wrong, you know, or I was wrong that, people today just, you know, they don't want to play this kind of game. It's it's too slow, you know, the puzzles are not, maybe some of them are not logical or fair or this or that, or, you know, the graphics aren't up to, you know, the great detail of some of the AAA, you know, games and all that. And it just, you know, it just limps along or something. Then we just might say, let's go back out on the boat. Let's go, you know, and that'll be that. And then I also said, and if it's a big hit, you know, well, you know, that could certainly propel us back into the game business. If it just sort of, you know, goes along, it's not bad, it's not good, it just, you know, who knows? And then some of it'll just be how we feel. Ken and I have always been very, somewhat impulsive. we always have been a little afraid for one of us to suggest, hey, why don't we do X? Because like, oh my God, if I bring that up, we might actually go do that, because we have, and then we find ourselves going along the ocean, along the Bering Sea and the Aleutian Islands, which we did, and other things. So we just, or like, oh, I know, let's bring Colossal Cave back. Let's just do that, we're just talking and we say it, and then before we know it, we're doing it. That's just the way we are. So you just don't know with us what we're going to do.
I mean, I will say Colossal Cave, I think we're in a time in gaming right now where kind of story-driven games, and I'd say Colossal Cave is very story-driven. I mean, you guys are somewhat of the pillars, if not the pillars, of like role-playing games, story-driven games for the modern world. I mean, everything from Skyrim and Morrowind and some of these great games that have come out in the last decade or 2 decades or so, they all come from the RPG games that you guys created. So, and right now, I think we're in this weird split in the gaming world where it's a mix between maximizing profits and then people who actually still look at gaming like an art. And I think you guys still look at gaming like an art. And I think Colossal Cave, one of the reasons why it's got such great reviews on Steam, and please guys, check it out on Steam. I'm sure we'll figure out a link for the bottom here for the video and things like that. But
absolutely.
It's very story driven, and I think people are dying for story driven games. I mean, there was a game came out recently called Stray where you play a cat, and that game won numerous awards, and it was very simple. There was not much of the game. I think the story driven aspect is huge today, and I think people are starving for story driven games. So I think Colossal Cave is going to absolutely skyrocket. I think the younger generation gets to get a glimpse into what their parents grew up in. I mean, I grew up watching my father play Descent and Wolfenstein and King's Quest and Phantasmagoria. My mom played a lot of those games, Myst, things like that, and a lot of kids of today's generation, they don't know what any of those things are. This is kind of a sight back into that, except in a medium that they can understand. So I think it's going to skyrocket.
We do seem to be finding that the action adventure games, the ones where maybe primarily there's definitely story to them. You're in this dystopian world. I have noticed there's a lot of dystopian worlds out there right now. It's
yes.
like, oh my gosh, why is everything so dystopian? Well, I guess partially so that they could fight. You have your combat or whatever, but they still do have a story to them. But but it's high action. I mean, it's high action. It's tense. It's on the edge of your seat. It is. You got to watch your back. You got to move. And I could see how that could be very addictive, because your adrenaline is raised,
right.
Your endorphins are going, as you're going to get a high doing that and keep doing that. And I mean literally a high, and become very addicted to that kind of a game. Whereas Colossal Cave and many, so the story oriented games are not necessarily an adventure game like what Colossal Cave is, or King's Quest, or even Phantasmagoria, or whatever the newer adventure games are today. They're both story oriented. It's just, but the action versus in Colossal Cave, it's slower pace. It's at your pace. And it's an exploration. It's a discovery. You go at your own pace. You discover. You see things. It's like a stroll, in a sense. It's more of a stroll as opposed to running, and
right.
and having to react. And I don't know. That's the question in my mind is how these high action endorphin, adrenaline running kind of games. And if you're a person that really loves those, I don't know how you can relate to a game like Colossal Cave. Or maybe you would. Maybe it's just like, oh my gosh, I can finally slow down a little bit, I mean, maybe they could do that. Absolutely. I don't know. You might know more than me.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's me, because, the further you get in life, the less time you have to devote to your hobbies.
Right.
And as a physician, I work a lot of different shifts. I work night shifts, weekends, whatever, still as an ER doctor, but I still want to be able to get back and unwind. And how do I do that? And when you play some of these games that are out today, whether it be MMO games or you want to talk about, most of these games have a leveling system in them. Like even games that are not MMOs, but like you put in more time, it has more benefit. And not everybody has more time to put in for said benefit. So, people like myself, we exist and we still are interested in gaming, but we just don't have hours upon grinding hours to develop toward a certain game. We either have wives or kids or baseball games or work or whatever. So this was, to me, a breath of fresh air, because it was like, I can go at my own pace. I can save the game. I can come back later. I have a couple hours to spare here. I can load it up and play a little bit, and I'm not being left in the dust by a lot of younger kids with a lot of free time who could just completely grind through everything. And then it's not even worth me playing, because I'll never be able to excel in that game because I just don't have the time to put into it.
Absolutely. I mean, I play a lot of there's a shooter game play called Escape from Tarkov. It's a big hit right now for a lot of people. And I put in what time I can. I mean, I still work. Being the software engineer, and I'm sure Ken can speak to this. I mean, sometimes my weeks are 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I'm drowned in work. And so when I get time, I try to play. And my wife recently got into video games. So like, I'm trying to spend time with her. And so my friends have gapped me by like 20, 30 levels, and I'm like so far behind where they are. So I have to agree, it's nice to play these games where like I can get on and play at a pace. I mean, single player games, I think, have such a power that way. Like where you leave is where you were, and if you have to go do real life, you can come back to it, and it's great. So I had a great time with Colossal Cave. I mean, I remember it back in the text-based version, but I was very young. I understand I was born in 91, so I was a youngin'. But I remember playing it. My mother played it pretty heavily, and so playing the 3D version, it actually answered a lot of questions that my young brain hadn't solved it then. So I don't know. I've greatly enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's been my biggest concern, is if players of the higher action games, even multiplayer games, if they could sort of relax, maybe, and set aside those, and try something different, and not have to be so frenetic all the time, and just that's the question in my mind, and we'll have to see, if they can or not. I don't know.
Do you guys have any plans to release Colossal Cave in classic like jewel case with a manual?
Ken?
Like a box art style?
Yeah, that's been bounced back and forth for 4 months. We're working with a company called Limited Run Games, which does a lot of classic games. And I wanted to do the Black Cauldron style box. I don't know if you ever saw it. We did kind of a pop front box with I think there was 8 or 16 pages of color in the front. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful box. And we're working towards that. We'll see if it actually comes to be. And that would be the PC version. On the console versions, PS5, Xbox One, PS4, they have special racks for the retailers. But the one I'm kind of excited about is to try to get a old style Sierra box that people can buy.
Yes.
We're even talking about putting like the little characters, in as little figurines, and, certain things.
Yeah.
I've been opposed to that. I probably shouldn't be, but it seems silly to me for the little figures. I care about the box. And I care about. I want to have some pages so that I can do the history of the game. It's most people, and we're working on a documentary now. I think people don't realize that the Mammoth Cave system that this is based on is like the biggest cave system in the world, and it was made that way by a lady named Patricia Crowther, the wife of Will Crowther, who was able to connect 2 major cave systems. And there's this whole history to the game, which is incredible. Right. And I don't remember how I got into talking about that, but it's some of the cool stuff. Oh, I want to be able to tell that story in the box. Yeah. And well, we're working on a documentary. Plus, if we did a box, maybe I could include on a CD-ROM or something, or a DVD, so that documentary, so people can see it.
Please ask us what's the fourth word on paragraph 3 of page 25. I would appreciate it if you could throw that back in there too.
The old DRM.
Well, no, that's true. I forgot we did all that stuff. Yeah,
that was great.
Have you tried our hint line? That was.
We were just talking about that, actually.
Yes.
That is. I think nobody had seen something done like that for a few years, so I thought it'd be fun to bring it back.
It's so rare.
Yeah, I mean, we did it in the old days as a 900 line. It was a revenue generator, but
yeah,
this one,
the main thing is for hints. The game is the exact same game as it always has been. Well, the 350 point version. So it's on the internet. I mean, anybody, if you get stuck and you don't know how to get past the snake or the dragon or how to get out of this Swiss cheese room or whatever it is, you can go to the internet, just type in, how do I get out of the Swiss cheese room? And, Colossal Cave, and it'll be right there. And it's the same answer.
I mean, I remember my mother going to Barnes and Nobles to buy like a Myst guide to help her get through some of Myst's issues in Riven, because she spent months on that game. In Lighthouse 2, months. I remember my mother played Lighthouse for months to solve that game.
That's one thing I should interject that is about this game is that so many people tell us that they first played King's Quest with their parents. My mom introduced it to me. I played it with my dad, and it was a real fun father-son experience. I mean, we get thousands of emails that say that. And I'm hoping that this game will be like that and that people will play it with their kids. And I when marketing did our launch video, and there's this scene in the launch video where one of the dwarfs throws a knife at the camera. And I threw a tantrum over that, but it's still in there because it implies, I guess, violence that just isn't there in the game. It's really meant to be a thinking game.
The dwarves do throw knives at you, and they can in their life.
Yeah, but it's not. You can't compare it to Call of Duty or Half-Life, It's not run around and shoot things game. It's a thinking. In fact, I want most of the game to be played when they're not in front of their computer. It's when they're sitting at dinner and they're saying, I got this snake. I can't get past it. And what do you think I should do? And the family is bouncing ideas, and then they go try something. And I want the game to be a whole family experience, and so that people can go through that thing that people remember so well from the Sierra days.
Right.
That's what happened to me. I broke the vase. I put the vase down. I didn't realize I broke the vase. I was so upset. I was eating dinner. I messaged Marcus, and I'm like, Marcus, the vase broke on me.
What did Marcus say?
He's like, you should have been more careful.
Did you ever solve it?
I've gotten very close. I still have to finish it. I don't want to give it away, but
we're playing it together.
And I won't go on Google because I don't like that.
Yeah, the end of the game, you would not believe how much code there is in the end of the game. It's the issue of adapting text to graphics. The end of the game in the text game is about 2 paragraphs that kind of, I don't want to spoil anything, but it says, there's a lot at the end of the game that's described in text. And I just wanted to display that text, but Roberta said, no, that would be cheating. You gotta do it. And I said, but that's going to take a month of programming. It's going to be, months of art time. And she said, no, we got to do it. People are going to want it. And the end of the game is cool. And if you listen closely, you'll see the Monty Python song there. And I was very happy to put it in. Did you find it?
No, I haven't got to the end yet. I'm
you're
working
gonna
my
love
way.
it.
I'm
Oh
a
my
huge
God.
Monty Python fan, so I'm gonna.
Oh, and well, you'll see. There's lots of surprises at the end of the game that make it so cool. That
Yeah.
I fought against.
Now you're glad.
Right.
Did you maintain any of the contacts from the Sierra years in making this game, or did you just go to all new people this time around?
It's all new people, and in some way that's good. I mean, most of the Sierra people are my age, and we wanted the game to be built by people that are the gamers' age.
Right.
And I would say, Roberta and I are dragging up the overall age on the game, but most of them are people that are the same age as the target audience. And even Roberta used to put a picture of the target player on her desk because she wanted to always think in terms of what they're going to think about the game and who they are. Right. And we wanted the game to be built by people that had played modern games, knew what they felt like, and could steer us back on course.
Yeah. So for me, for both Ken and I, part of it is we wanted to hire people that were of modern gamer age, I guess you might say. And so they were generally from 45 down to 25. In there. And I think there was one gentleman that's close to our age and all that, but basically, but that was important because we needed to understand how, because that's really where the gamers are. How do they think? What do they think? And each programmer and artist or animator that we hired, the first thing we said was, we want you to take a day or two and play the text game, because most of them had never even heard of it. They had no idea what it was. So we made them say, no, you're going to take a few days, and we would give them the text game. Here it is. Download it and play it, and then start working, so that at least they knew what they're working on. And they all came back kind of like, well, I don't know that today's players will put up with this, and it just. There's a lot of, some of the puzzles are illogical, and I just don't know they're gonna have the patience, and and all of this and that, and so we said, that's fine, it's fine, you have that feeling right now, but we're just gonna get to work, and we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna see how we're gonna do this, and how we're gonna do the art and the animation and the puzzles, and figure out all the depth of, there's lamp mechanics. One of the things going through the cave, you have a lamp, and you have to keep it lit. It's got a timer. The lamp mechanics has got a timer, and the original game is turn-based, and so we had to figure out turn-based, in today's world, with 3D, movement and everything. But there's just a lot of depth to it. And so they were like, well, I don't know, we'll just, so as we worked on it, they would say, well, I just don't think we should do it this way. I don't think that modern players would, and I made some changes based upon what they would say, if it made sense, for what we're trying to do, as long as it didn't change the game very much. I always said, right, that's fine. We can look at, the interface, the UI could be changed for this or this, that, or more help, hand-holding. I heard the word hand-holding a lot. Right. But the game itself, I'm not changing any puzzles, but it was interesting as we went along, and we found it was almost like archaeology, digging into the Fortran code. And because we had the original Fortran code, and a lot of the comments made by the designers themselves about why they decided to do a certain puzzle this way, what they thought about the players, if they do it that way, and they made little comments about the players and decisions and things like that, which was very helpful for me. But as we dug further down into the game, and we had questions that come up, is why would they want it to be like this? This seems very unfair. We don't understand why. And I and the programmers especially would get into it, and we would pore over the Fortran code to try to figure out and find the little phrase, the little thing in there that would tell us why. Should we change it? Should we leave it as it is? And more often than not, we would find it. We would find some little, oh, there it is. Doing that was almost like playing the game itself and finding a little treasure so we could understand why it had to be like this. But as the programmers and the artists got deeper and deeper into the actual code of the game and the design of the game, and we saw the strategy of the game, there's a lot of strategy that you don't see at first. You start playing, you're just exploring, you're picking up things, and you're going through. But after a while, you start seeing the strategy and the management of lamp, inventory items, dropping things, managing your inventory. What can I drop now? Where did I leave it? Do I need it anymore? Can I get rid of it? Should I keep it for some other reason, like a maze, maybe? But whatever. You just saw more, and these younger players that were now working with us, they came to love this game. I mean, love it.
Right.
And these were big time, game players, many of them, and they love it. As they saw what it really is, and this is what I mean by the bones of this game.
Good bones.
It's very surprising as you get into it how much is in it.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan. I'm excited to finish the game, continue to play it myself. I will say, Ken, I'll have to give my contact information. If you ever have any C# questions, let me know, because I'm a staff engineer and I do C# all day. So I'd love to help anywhere I can, because I understand it's a unique environment. I wrote hardware drivers. My last job wrote hardware drivers for 1999 IoT device. So I get all the levels up and down, but I'm excited. This is, Colossal Cave is amazing. And, I think we're running out of time here. I know I want to wrap it up for you guys, because I know everybody has an evening they want to get to, but I'm excited to finish it. I'm excited to play more. You guys are huge heroes of mine. I played so many Sierra games. I mean, I got to think everything from Phantasmagorium to SWAT 4, Police, Shivers. I mean, all of those. I've had an incredible machine game, The Return. I played that as well. Yeah, King's Quest. Yes, I have a friend who loves that game to this day. Yes. So I don't know. You guys are amazing. Continue to do what you're doing. I think the generation needs to see these kind of games of today. They need to explore this kind of environment. And I think that, your reviews speak for themselves. The game is well loved already on Steam, and Steam is a hard critic. So I think you guys have hit success. I think it's wanting to go up. Anything you want to say, Doc? Anything you want to add?
I just have one more dual quick question. I'll leave you guys alone. I wanted to know about the future, especially space venture. So, like, space venture and overall has been coming back to the industry a more positive experience, a more neutral experience, or as not as good of an experience as you remember?
I think positive. It was a lot of hard work. Ken and I haven't worked so hard in a long time. I mean, it was almost 2 years, literally 7 days. Well, maybe not 7 days a week, every week, but at least 6 days a week, every week. Our weekends I can't even remember a weekend that I've been able to take as a weekend in a long time. So we have been working really hard. That part has been kind of difficult to get back into, but overall, I think it's been a very positive experience, very, very positive. And especially if the game does well, it's, don't you think, Ken?
Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's funny, when he asked if I was retired, I was thinking, well, I'm tired. It's been so at least half of that I can vouch for. No, it's just been a lot of work, and it feels good now. I mean, for the first time, I actually played golf with the guys the other day, and that felt good. But But what we need really to get going another game is some inspiration, some clever idea, something that we're passionate about. And Roberta's talked about, wouldn't it be cool to do something like Laura Bow? I've been playing with Chat GPT and thinking it would be fun to do something with AI. The guys that did Space Venture have been talking to us, the two guys from Andromeda, talking about possibly us helping them get that out the door. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things to be done, but, for at least a little bit, we need to relax and kind of get our lives back, and then think about what excites us and what we think will excite players. And I suspect we'll do something, but we're going to first have to think about what it is. So
get a couple good holes of golf in. I'm a big golf guy myself as of recently.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's an honor for me to get to talk to an ER doc and another software engineer. It don't get better than that. We got the good team here. So
yeah. Well, I am going to get you my information. I would love to answer any questions I can, design patterns, C# stuff, anything I can, but get some golf in. You guys did a wonderful job. Colossal Cave is amazing. I think coming from where you guys came from, you guys should go to bed knowing that you guys are the pillars of RPG games of today, and that pretty much anybody from my millennial generation grew up playing a lot of your games, and it's a huge honor for me. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next from Cygnus, and I'm excited to finish Colossal Cave and go from there.
Thank you very much for having us. It's been a pleasure for us too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Anything,
Thank you for taking the time, and we appreciate it, and we look forward to what's next. And I look forward to finishing Colossal Cave myself. I'll probably boot it up right after this interview. But
so when you want to finish it, what do you feel finishing is? What is finishing the game for you? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
I can answer that. For me, I mean, it seems like there's a dual-pronged question there. It seems like one, it's like, do you get to the end where there's nothing left to do, or do you get to the end of the game where there's not new content past that, or do you get to the end of the game where you try to uncover every little nuance and nook and cranny of the game and get all the points you can? And to me, it's always been trying to squeeze every little bit of life out of the software I can. So with me, it's like if you quote finish it and you don't have all the points, you didn't truly finish it. So it would be to go back and try to right the wrongs and not make my vase crack and do that differently. I won't give away how you do that, but the point is that you could do better. Yeah. So you could do it, but you can do it better.
Well, I'd say my answer is pretty simple. I would say I naturally try to hit every nook and cranny. I immediately was exploring I was going places the game wouldn't let me in more. But being kind of a younger generation of gamers, but the minute the credits roll, I know that I've done as much as I can along the way. So typically that's when I take as the end and go from there. But I love replay value.
Well, I'll tell you why I asked the question, because there's more than one way to play it and feel like you finished it. And that's one thing about this game, is it is very replayable, and so many different ways you can play it. But there's really two major ways that I think of as playing this. You could either play it where you get to the end of the game, where you feel like you saw every place, everything you could possibly see, and you saw it, and then you finally got to the end and you got your ending sequence, whatever that is. And then that's it. Right. This is okay, we're done. And then you get your score, whatever the score is. That's one way. You say, well, I did get to the end. I actually got to the ending sequence. But then there's another way. It's if you want to go for the 350 point score. That's a whole, if you say, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to play it. I want to get 350 points. That's my goal. You play the game differently. It's a different game. Yeah. Believe me, it is.
One big hint, make sure you take instructions until you're a master of the game, because it gives you more lamp time. And that winds up being critical. Yeah, the save game won't even help you there. You
Oh.
can restore a game all you want, but if you only got 5 minutes left on your lamp, you're still going to run out of lamp.
Well, we are explaining that
Good to
now
know.
at the beginning. When you start the game, we tell you that. We didn't at the beginning, but we are
Right.
now. So we do tell you that. Anyway, that was all. That's all.
Great.
All I wanted to know. So
No, I'm excited to play it, and I just want to say thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Seriously, thank you so much for spending time with us. This has been a huge, monumental moment for me, and I'm sure for Doc. And,
Absolutely.
we
hope
will.
you guys have a wonderful evening,
You
and
too.
look
Thank
out
you.
for us to communicate more.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you much.
Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Right now, go to GOG.com and get Colossal Cave for 20% off at $19.99. Don't miss out. And special thanks to Marcus Mera for making this interview happen.